Hey everybody, I'm Shaun Blakeney, Senior Pastor of Anchor Church, and welcome to Afterthought. This is the podcast where we go back into the message and talk about all the things I didn't get to say, wished I'd said, or wanted to go deeper on. Think of this as the sermon after the sermon. Unfiltered, honest, and from the heart. I'm grateful you're here. I'm excited for what God is going to do through this podcast. Now, let's dive in today's Afterthought. Hey everybody, my name is Shaun Blakeney, the Senior Pastor of Anchor Church here in South Florida, and we're so glad you're with us today for another episode of Afterthought. This is the podcast where we dive into the things I wish I said, the things I wanted to say, the things Teresa thought I should have said. We're going to unpack all of those golden nuggets today on this episode of Afterthought. And we're in a series right now that we've titled The Confidence Code, Unlocking God's Divine Assurance Inside of You. And the only way to do that is when you live by the holy fire of God, that Holy Spirit presence living inside of you on a daily basis. And we've been talking about how God loves you, how you've got to just get rid of the shame and guilt in your life. But today, on this episode of Afterthought, Unlocking the Confidence Code Inside of You, babe, we are talking about the importance of how to stand up when everything around you is falling down. I know that none of you out there are experiencing that today. Your life is golden. Your life is amazing. But sometimes, let's be honest, in life, everything around us feels like it's crumbling. And how do you have confidence when things around you feel like they're just absolutely falling apart? And once again, today for this episode, I have my partner in crime, my much better half, my beautiful half, who is struggling a little this morning because she has a doctor's appointment. So no caffeine this morning for you, babe. So
it's rough.
I'm so sorry you couldn't have coffee this morning. And I don't want to make you feel that bad, but
So
hold on
nice.
1 second.
I can
sorry, babe.
smell it.
But honey, I do have a little question for you today before we jump in, because we have some deep questions for today. But I do have a question for you as we unpack this idea of how do you stay standing in a world that's falling apart.
Yep.
Okay, I have a quick question for you just to break the ice
Okay.
today. All right, here it is. Ready? If your life were a movie this week, would it be a comedy, a drama, a romance, or a thriller, and why? Do you like that question?
Yeah.
I was thinking about it on the treadmill this morning. I'm like, what could be an outstanding question to get the ball rolling?
Can I say a rom-com?
Absolutely, you could say a rom-com. By the way, for the record, what is your favorite rom-com?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know. I really like 40 First Dates. I think that's kind of
50
silly.
First Dates?
50 First Dates.
But 40 First Dates
I
would
only
be
like
another great movie.
First 40. Only the
That
first
was
40.
absolutely one of the first dates we went on.
I know. It's endearing. I love it.
I
just
think
it's so
anything
cute.
Adam Sandler has a totally great family vibe,
Yeah.
rom-com feeling.
Agreed.
And every woman that's ever casted as his counterpart is always so much better looking than he is. I think as the director, he's just like, who will I get for this one? Jennifer Aniston. Who will I get for this? He
There you go.
always outkicks his coverage
There you
on this.
go.
But
That's
way to go,
wise.
Adam Sandler.
That's
Proud of
smart.
you, buddy. All right. So unlocking this divine code, babe. That is, I mean, this is hard. How do you stand up when everything around you is falling down? When life gets crazy, what do you do? I know you've got some questions and some things you probably thought I wished I said or thought I said, but what are some thoughts from maybe just the sermon or just in life in general? Maybe how about you and I just unpack how we live our lives
Okay.
in a confident way when everything around us seems to be
Yeah.
falling down. Okay, let's unpack this. A lot of people know that you were in the hospital like this a couple years ago, right? And you've been completely healed of that. You still have some stuff that, doctor's appointments and stuff that we're still processing through, but God has radically healed you.
Yes.
And there was a month of your life that you've said you don't remember anything, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I have my perspective. I'd love to unpack that, how I dealt with all of that, because I think in my lifetime, that was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, right? And you have a different perspective because you don't remember any of it.
I didn't
so
remember.
when all that was happening, or when you were coming out of all of that and beginning to remember things, how did you, how did you feel? But how did you really find your confidence in the Lord after all that, as you were healing, because you went through 2 years of healing,
Right.
2 years of seizures, 2 years of like still foggy memory and things like that. So how did you have confidence in the Lord when everything around you felt like it was shaking?
You know, when I was first coming out of it, obviously I had no idea what had happened. So I'm missing a month of my life, and I only know what I went through because what I've heard from you and your mom and Austin, the family that was there
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah.
I have no recollection of an entire month, even though I was functioning and I was talking and living.
Yeah.
I wasn't really alive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you were existing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as I came out of that, and I'm learning and putting pieces together about what I'd been through, and now I was having these seizures, and that I was having to deal with several times a day, and it was just a time when things were so uncertain for me.
Yeah.
I felt like I was never confident in any moment because at any moment I could have a seizure, and they happened so frequently. You know,
Well, and
almost
you
an hour a
would, I
day.
mean, you would feel them coming on.
You'd
So
feel
like
it coming on.
we'd sit there and you go, I feel this, right? And I remember when you were first healing, babe, out of the hospital, and you started having these massive panic attacks, which you'd never had in your life. But
Right.
I'm going to guess you maybe had 15 a day.
Probably.
And they were extensive. Where I mean, you were crying, and I need to go to the hospital. I'm dying, and we would quote scripture. You know, I remember quoting scripture over you in our John 3:16 because I knew that you would know that,
Over
and
and over.
that would come. Yeah, and we just continued to declare that over and over your life when you would have these panic attacks, and I mean that went on for a good bit.
Right. And honestly, I felt like life was really kind of just moment to moment for me at that point. And all I could do to get through the day was just really, I felt like I just needed to turn it all over to the Lord. I was like, Lord, you are in this somehow. You are working this all out. I could have been dead. I'm not. I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
I know you're doing something. And I literally would just, when I was waiting for the next seizure or just not feeling great, I just knew, you know what, there's the Lord is doing something in this, and
Yeah.
I just need to rest in that. I need to accept that. And even if this is going to continue for the rest of my life, I didn't know what the outcome was. I trusted that the Lord was going to heal me. I truly believed I'd be healed of those seizures. I knew it. But in the back of my mind, I would say, you know, but if he doesn't heal me, my soul is still healed.
Yeah.
My body may not be
Yeah.
healed, but I'm still healed in my soul because I can trust him and I can rely on him. And it really gave me
Yeah.
peace in a time when I felt so uncomfortable and never really
Yeah.
sure of what was going on.
I will tell you, like, okay, so let's unpack that for a second, because I feel like people are watching and joining us and are going through stuff. Maybe not exactly what you went through, but we all have our own things, right? And I think how we deal with stuff says a lot about who our foundation is.
Yeah.
And in our marriage, when life gets crazy, who do you think handles stress better, you or me?
Oh, my word. Me, for sure. Is there a doubt? Oh, my
Well,
gosh.
I was hoping you'd say me, but
No. No.
So okay, how do you respond versus how I respond, babe? For all the viewers out there, let us
Yes.
know. Let us know the inside scoop on how I handle stress.
Well, how you handle stress. Is it...
Wait, do we want to hear this? Do we want to hear?
There's some kind of two sides to how you handle stress.
Okay.
You handle stress, you explode.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it will seem like for the most trivial thing, but I understand it's a culmination of a bunch of stuff that's been piling up. But you
True.
wait till you explode,
True.
and then you do explode.
Yeah.
And then you feel horrible about it. And then as the day progresses, you just pass out. I've never seen anyone who fall asleep faster. You can have so much on your mind, but it exhausts you. So
Yeah.
you just pass out.
Yeah, that is true. What happens to me is, just so y'all know, is I retain.
Yes.
I'm good. And then something typically small
Yep.
is the catalyst for me to unload. And I remember to this day, I get so frustrated when our kids were like, Dad was always mad. And I'm like, that is not true. But when I did get mad, they didn't forget it. So but it's because I just like, all right, little inside information, Laura. This happened a few months ago, but I was processing and holding on to a lot of stress, and I was drinking a cup of coffee in the morning while we were getting ready, and I knocked the coffee mug off of my bathroom sink. It shattered on the ground. Coffee went everywhere, and I lost it.
Yes.
I lost it. And Teresa was like, it's just a coffee mug.
Cup.
And I'm just like,
so many of them.
It's not the coffee mug. It is the 1,000 things that were processing in my brain at that time when I knocked over the mug. And so obviously I must not handle.
That's a good example. That's a very good example.
I must not handle stress very well. But for everyone out there, Lord, for everyone out there, Teresa, that are relying on the Lord today, how do they do what I don't do? Obviously, I should not be the one preaching this message, because when my world is falling down around me, I don't handle it super well. But when you were in the hospital, I do feel like starting a church, building church is the hardest thing we've ever done in our lives. Yeah. It really is. And I don't think I feel like I need to apologize to every pastor I ever worked for in my life, because I did not understand. And to this day, our church, our staff, no one really understands the responsibility of the weight you carry until they're in that seat. And I have a new appreciation for senior pastors out there that are carrying the weight and the burden. There's the financial stress, there's staff, there's relationships, there's so much that happens, right? Even us having our building now, there's so many things with the county and city and money, and there's all those things. And so the stress is great. And when you went into the hospital, that happened 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, the day after Thanksgiving. And I was not prepared for it. I wasn't ready for it. Right. And it threw me into a quandary. And so I had and we were coming up on Christmas. So I had all of the stress of all this and church. And I remember that point in time, money wasn't as great as, it's better now, but there was all these things that were happening. And then your health. And I really have said from the beginning, like, I think the devil knows how to get me. Like, you are my Achilles, babe, because I love you with all my heart, and I can manage everything else, but something happening to you just puts me over the edge. And that was, I didn't handle that well. I remember for a long time, not really understanding why people saw counselors, but I had to start seeing a counselor, because I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know how I was feeling. I didn't know what was going to happen to you. You at that point in time, we knew you were going to live, but we didn't know what capacity that would look like. We talked about, would you have to go to a home, to have everything taken care of for you? We all these things were processing. In the meantime, I'm like, man, we still have to build church. And I started seeing a counselor, and I remember what the counselor told me is you are always going to have stress. There are always going to be things around you that are shaking. You're always going to have instability. And so it's not, how do I get rid of the stress? It is, how do I function in the middle of it? Right. And he gave me this illustration about how, if you're on a boat and the boat is rocking and shaking and the storms are hitting, and you feel like you've lost any stability whatsoever in your footing, and you start feeling nauseous or sick, you need to go to the center of the boat, go downstairs, go to the center of the boat. It's called centering. You go to the center of the boat and you get on your knees, and that is the most stable place in the whole boat, is in the center. And he said, Shaun, what you need to realize is, what is your center? He said, because right now your center is you, but your center has to be Jesus. And I remember Brian telling me that. And that helped me in that moment. And I think I have to continually go back to that idea, or that illustration of just, man, when things hit in your life, because they're going to hit, not, man, I hope they don't hit. No, when they hit, what is your center? And mine had to be Jesus. It had to be. So I know that we all handle stress differently, but that's one of the ways I try to handle it, manage it. When my world feels like it's shaky, is go to the center, which is Jesus.
Why do you think some people crumble in those hard situations, but other people really can stand strong in those?
Mm-hmm. I think, let's go back to Jesus giving the parable of the two people building the house, right? Yeah. So the foolish man builds his house on the sand, and the rain comes, the storms come, the flood comes, and the house crumbles. Yet, same scenario, the wise man builds this house on the rock. So the storms come, floods come, rain comes, and his house stood firm. It was the same rain, same storm, same wind, just different foundation.
Right.
And you and I have this conversation a lot. I don't know how people that don't have a relationship with Jesus, I don't know how they manage daily life stress.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe they think my gifting can handle it. I'm a strong man, so I've got the mental toughness to make it happen. And I really consider myself a pretty confident, tough person. But when you went through your situation, if I did not have the Lord, I don't know how I would have survived, quite honestly, honey. Because a lot of people don't know that, before me, you were married and your husband passed away of cancer. Yeah. And I remember you and I having that conversation because you had a relationship with the Lord. I don't know how people go through those difficult seasons of life, through death of a loved one or a divorce or a financial situation or a relationship struggle. I don't know how people manage that without having the foundation of Jesus. And so I think when storms hit your life, right, because they will hit your life, if your foundation is not rooted on the solid rock of Jesus, I don't know how you don't crumble. And I think a lot of people put on a great game face. I think a lot of times people come in on a Sunday and there are things that we hear about that people are going through. Yep. And we're like, we would have never known. But I think people put on a great game face until they can't anymore. And I think, honestly, that was me when you were in the hospital. I think I was, how you doing? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And I was trying to convince myself I was good when really at the core I wasn't. Right. But I think the storms, they don't make your foundation. I think they reveal your foundation. And if your foundation's not Jesus, I do not know how. I don't know how people can manage. I don't.
I don't. And I feel like the average person can probably handle everyday stress on their own without a firm foundation on the Lord. Honestly, we're equipped just as human beings to be able to kind of take stress and roll with the punches. Mm-hmm. But it's when those big crises come through and the big events that rock your world, that I don't understand how the average person can get through that without having a firm foundation in the Lord, because honestly, we're not equipped to withstand that kind of stuff. And as much as you can pretend that you're getting through it and everything's great, you're just pretending, and you're really dying on the inside, and you have no support. That foundation is missing to keep you supported through that event. And so while we can kind of handle the everyday stresses that come to us, we should really use those as practice to rely on the Lord, even in the simple things, because as we're building that trust and building that foundation in Him, when those big times come, then we're really standing on that firm foundation, and we can fall into that.
Well, here's a dovetail question off of that. Then, do you think the Lord allows you to go through stressful situations?
I think I don't know if He allowed. I think humanity we were just created to live in turmoil because of when we left Eden. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're expected to have and to learn to cope with. And so He definitely probably allows it. Yeah.
I think, that's what I think. I think it's kind of a loaded question, because I was processing this past week. I was thinking, when I go through difficult situations, like, the Lord is sovereign, right? Yeah. And He allows things to happen. The Lord doesn't tempt us. The devil tempts us. The temptation is to draw us away. The Lord tests us. The testing is to draw us near. And I think the only way to reveal what your foundation is to have situations in your life happen to let you see what your foundation is. So
rather than even saying He allows it, I almost think it's purposeful. I mean,
intentional.
It's intentional. You're going through this for a purpose. Yeah. To grow you.
Well, in no way, shape, or form was my situation. What was going on with you was Job in the Old Testament. Right. But I thought about that a lot. I thought, man, how did this guy, right? Because the Bible says that the Lord the Lord was allowed it to happen. You can let anything happen to him, but you just can't kill him, right? So there's physical stuff. He had boils, and his family all died, and he lost all of his crops and all his money, all kind of stuff. And he continued to worship the Lord, right? Naked I came from my mother's womb, naked I will return. Blessed be the name of the Lord. I'm like, when everything is crumbling around you, how in the world do you process that to go, man, Lord, I just worship you? Right. And I think that the Lord knew his character, so he allowed those things to happen to him because he knew his foundation was God. And sometimes I think that stuff will happen to us where everything around us is crumbling. And the Lord, sometimes I think the Lord allows us to hit rock bottom so that we realize he's the rock at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I think as manly as I thought it was, that I could handle all this and the pressure of the church and the financial stuff and Teresa and the like, you can't. If you don't have Jesus, I don't know how, but I do think the Lord allows those things to happen in our life for us to process and realize who our foundation is. Yeah. And we've talked to so many people in so many scenarios, whether it's in marriage or finances or relationships or friendships or work or whatever, that they don't have a foundation with the Lord. And then everything around them crumbles and they blame the Lord. And I'm like, man, he wasn't your foundation to begin with. Like, you're not going to blame the one that's holding you sturdy. Right. You want to exalt the one that's holding you sturdy. And that just should be that mindset that, man, I've built my foundation. I've built my house on the wrong place, you know?
Yeah. It takes those tough moments. They expose that foundation that you built on. So you may honestly believe that you're trusting in the Lord every day, but until the hard things hit, you don't really get to practice that. And when you're put to the limit, and it forces you to take perspective of what's really going on here. Am I really trusting? Am I standing firm? Am I able to stand rather than fall in this time because I'm standing on the rock? You know, you may not even realize until you're in those moments. You have to reevaluate where you're at and make changes real time if you have to. You got to go, Lord, I need you, and I know it, and this is the moment. I'm claiming you right now because I have to. You know, maybe it takes something like that. But
well, I think about it, maybe like in regards to seeing that lived out when my dad died. We've talked about this before. I mean, he's my dad, and I miss him every day. My mom has to miss him terribly, and we said this before, like, she on a daily basis, just, the day after my dad died, she flew down to be with us and we took care of her. And I see in her a confidence where, yes, she misses him. Yeah. But I also see her on a daily basis having confidence in the Lord to meet the need that she has a void in now with my dad being gone. Because I'm thinking, man, I miss that guy. I mean, I've told you before, there are moments or seasons when I just really miss him, and I'll be walking in the gym and I'll just be crying, going, man, I wish I could just talk to my dad. But I see a confidence in my mom that I go, man, that is what it looks like to be a confident man or woman of God when you lose a loved one or you're whatever, and you don't go, oh, woe was me, and I'm you were like, man, I'm so grateful that she says, I'm so grateful I had those 50 plus years with him. I'm so grateful that we had that time together, but man, he is gone, but I will see him again. And my confidence, she didn't get mad at the Lord, didn't get disgusted at the Lord. She embraced her relationship with the Lord in the midst of that loss. And those are the things where I'm like, dude, that is what it truly means to gravitate to, the Lord in the midst of struggle.
And I think it's important to point out that even if you're confident in the Lord and you're standing firm, it doesn't mean you're without fear or anxiety about what you're going through. I mean, those are natural reactions. And I know when I was going through my stuff, and I'm just thinking, and I'm trusting in the Lord to heal me. And I really did have, I know I believed, and I know people probably thought, are you just pretending you really believe? No, I really believed. I knew I was healed. And I think because I'd stop and think about it, even if I'm not healed physically, I'm healed. And I think I accepted that healing without having perfect healing. But I think it's good to understand that you can be very confident in the Lord and what he's doing in you, but still have fear.
Yes.
Because that is it's just natural, and
Yes.
and you have to learn to deal with that and almost push it aside as you allow God to, you just try to really fully rely on him
Yeah.
and go, Lord, you know I'm scared. This is a scary time, but Lord, I really, really, I don't want to dwell in that. I want to dwell in your favor and your love and your in the confidence that you are in this with me completely.
I think, babe, in my mind as you're talking, I'm thinking about a rubber band stretching, and you've probably done this or seen it where you stretch the rubber band, you stretch it until it breaks. And I truly believe that you're going back to the Lord allowing things to happen, right? I believe that in that stretching. In the stretching, we will either bow or we will break. And I'm thinking about it in my own life context. And let's go back to when you were in the hospital and you're going through all your stuff, and I'm trying to manage church and finances and you and your health and all these things, right? And I'm stretched. And I remember every day going, Lord, I know that your word tells me you won't give me more than I can handle, but right now I'm at my limit. Stretch. The next day, Lord, I can't do anything more. Stretch, right? And I got to the place where I've told you about this before. I had such a spirit of fear over me. I was waking up every day in a spirit of fear. And I anointed the whole house. I mean, I declared, I anointed every room in our house. I got to the front door and I prayed a prayer of declaration over our house that, Lord, today we worship you. There is no more fear in this place. And I think it was that stretching where I was close to the breaking, but I think it was, I realized the humility of where I was at in my arrogance of thinking I can accomplish all this, that the Lord had me bow. And I think that's such a, I think it's probably a great place to wrap this up, is the Lord will allow tension in your life. And does the tension cause you to bow or does it cause you to break? And I think if your foundation is not fully rooted on the solid rock of God, you will break every time. You will break. Because it's not, will I be stretched? Oh no, you're going to be stretched. The question is, will you bow or will you break? And I think a lot of people break and then they get mad at God for the breaking. But I think it's in the bowing that we recognize he's the solid foundation we had all along. And that's the confidence code. That's the divine assurance that, man, God is with you and you're going to stretch, but you got to bow before you break.
Yep. Sure.
Well, great episode. Went in a little deep, didn't we? Talked about some deep stuff. You know, all of our, when I get mad, I'm throwing coffee cups in the bathroom. Right. You know the deep, dark secrets now of our stress. Man, we love you all so much. Hey, please like, share, subscribe to our channel. We are so glad you're with us today on this episode of Afterthought, babe. And I really hope today's message, I really hope today's podcast gives you some ways to, man, build your life on the solid foundation of Jesus Christ, because you're going to go through struggles, you're going to go through trials. But the question is, will you bow or will you break? We'll see you next time.